What is your biggest pet peeve about innovation in the firearm space? And I know you'll say it on stage for everybody else, but I want to
Oh,
get your brain thinking a little bit.
oh, so it's nothing new. I've said this before in videos. I'm going to say it again. I'm going to keep talking about it. The artificial limitations on innovation are crazy. And we have a ton of them in this country that are not related to firearms. Like we have maximum rare earth minerals in this country, but we're not allowed to turn them into magnets. We have to buy magnets from China. We just found a ton of lithium, but we're not allowed to turn it into batteries. So we got to go to China. There's all kinds of artificial limitations that bug me. But on the firearm side, I would say that the NFA is huge. We have very cool new calibers of ammunition and case geometries that lend themselves to short-barreled rifles, but short-barrel rifles are just a no fun zone, no play zone. It's too expensive zone. All kinds of new materials and manufacturing techniques for suppressors, but there's this giant barrier to entry, which fortunately, thanks to inflation, I usually don't say thanks to inflation, but thanks to inflation, that $200 tax stamp is getting cheaper all the time, but like a very artificial hurdle to get over just to experiment with this really simple, easy, safe place where we should be seeing a lot of innovation. So the NFA is the perfect example of just like something that could very easily be scrapped and it would open up a whole new area for people to experiment with materials and manufacturing and tons of stuff that we're so good at now. We have really good 3D printing capability and we have really good like simulate dynamics of different fluid dynamics inside of a suppressor. There's all kinds of places that we could really experiment and have a ton of fun. But there are these artificial limits that have been placed on us. And so, yeah, I guess that's another pet peeve.
I love that you brought up the artificial limits with, lithium and things like that. Recently we were talking about tariffs and stuff with our federal affairs team. And I brought up the lead smelts and ammunition. And that is a big issue because we can't smelt our own lead. We have to go somewhere else. So what is your opinion on being dependent on other countries to get the things we need that we can get at home?
So I mentioned before, I'm an advocate of decentralization for a whole bunch of different areas. Even here at T-Rex, if we have a single bottleneck, that's going to potentially slow things down. But then like if the bottleneck is a machine that breaks, now we're really in trouble. So if we can decentralize our production so we have multiple heat presses, multiple CNC machines, multiple ways to bend holsters, then we're a lot more resilient. We're a lot less fragile. So there's that aspect to it. But the other one is if there were only one holster company in America, well, let's say it's us. We're probably not as motivated to come up with cool new ideas and be competitive with things. So decentralizing so that people can be more competitive in some of these different areas is also huge. Then being dependent on other countries is now we're inheriting any of their fragilities, any of their issues we're kind of inheriting as well. So if we could remove some of these limitations, it also just feels kind of mean to say like, you know what, don't smelt lead in America. It's too bad for Americans. Only Guatemalans are allowed to do it. Like, what are we saying about these other countries? Like, you're allowed to have these terrible, unsafe, horrible things that you just go do it for us. I don't like that either.
Now, I also want to pick your brain. You said earlier when we were talking in the beginning that one of the things that firearms owners don't pay attention to is history. Can you dive into that a little bit on what you mean by the history?
A lot of different things. History of how people used to think about firearms, or even people used to think about weapons prior to firearms being the de facto weapons. Just kind of the path that we have been on for so many centuries of Western culture is, I think, a very important thing that it would help firearm owners to understand. But like even just in the space of manufacturing that we've just been talking about, to understand that firearms technology has often led a lot of innovation. Like Eli Whitney inventing interchangeable parts completely changed all manufacturing in the world, but it was specifically for guns. Guns are high tolerances are required, high pressures are involved, they're used in high pressure situations. Like firearms are a great place to innovate with new stuff. And historically, lots of innovations of material science and manufacturing technology have come out of firearm technology. So, just a little bit of historical awareness there just kind of raises the stakes for the benefits of reducing some of these artificial limitations. Let that be a place where people can make breakthroughs that will trickle out into other parts of manufacturing as well. It used to be kind of the tip of the spear for making stuff in the world and then in America in a big way.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I also think, when we talk about innovation just in general in the firearms industry, and we look at the right to repair, the right to build your own firearms, like those are things that predate, the constitutional protections of the Second Amendment. That's something that has always been in existence, yet you can see the anti-gunners going after those things. And what happens is that stifles innovation when we think about the great thinkers like Browning and others that created entire companies and changed the landscape of what firearms looked like, the dependability. Those things happen because great thinkers were able to think. And it really makes me nervous when we think of the right to repair or the right to build your own firearms being taken away, is the innovation piece that we could be missing out for centuries to come, because you want a select and chosen few to have a right that we've all had for all of human history, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and these ideas have consequences, right? Like it's very destructive of an idea if you say that, well, you're allowed private property and you're allowed freedom of speech and you're allowed to think and to build and to own things, but at any point we can just declare a type of physical matter that's in a specific shape to be illegal, and you're not allowed to have it or to make it or to have the tools to make it or to share the knowledge about it. That idea will spread to other things, and it will just kind of poison the freedom to think and the freedom to innovate in ways that are going to leak outside of just the firearm industry, the shooting, hunting, outdoor industry. That's going to affect the way that people think about other things. And I understand that there's going to need to be safety regulations and so forth, and there need to be penalties for people who hurt others because they're experimenting with liquid fuel rockets in their garages, for example. But that's the better way to handle that than saying like, well, you're allowed to do model rocketry, but only up to a certain level that the politicians are comfortable with. Or you're allowed to do drone development, but only until we see something bad happen, then everybody has to stop. Well, why are we allowed to do that? Well, we took guns away, so there's precedent for us to take this away too. That's kind of how these ideas can spread if you're not careful.